Hey everybody, welcome to another model building workshop. I am Mr. Allen. I'm coming to you from my basement workshop here in Providence, Rhode Island on behalf of the Community Libraries of Providence, and we're going to do part two of our discussion on the H39 here by Tamiya. And it's funny because I just realized, another one in part two, that it doesn't refer to this tank as the Hotchkiss H39. It just says H39. I don't know why I missed that the first time, but it's the Hotchkiss H39. I think that's intriguing. They just went French light tank H39, and then they give you the whole German designation underneath it for the German version. Anyway, I thought that was kind of intriguing. So I know we talked about a number of things in part one, and we kind of had to cut the video short as we were having technical difficulties. Seems like everything's good now, and it's probably just as well that we start fresh with some other topics here, because I want to talk about markings and things like that that go with this vehicle, and I'm going to give you a better look at some of the parts too. So here are the decals that come with this kit. There's not much, but you know, it does the job, because there are two versions that we have here. As I said, we have the American. Wow. We do not have the American. We have a French and a German. Anyway, it's been a long day. So let's take a look at the molding textures here, which I don't think are too bad. It's subtle, but they're there. I don't know if you can really see that, but there are some indications of the cast textures on these parts, because I was under the impression that they weren't very good, but you know, they're not bad. They are there. So I know we were talking in the last episode of a magazine article that was suggesting that you use the like Mr. Surfacer to add a texture to it, you know, putting like a putty on there and stippling it to give it more of the cast texture to it. You may not want to. I don't know. Have a look and see what you think. Depends how much detail you want to give this, because it is on here too. Maybe I should take this out of here so you get a better look. Come on. And as many of you will probably notice, the H35 has the same APX turret that's on the Renault R35, since it was technically made by a different company, APX, and it supplied the armament for both tanks. And that's a blessing and a curse, because one of the problems the French had is that they had different factories all over the place building different components. And when one area got overrun by the Germans, suddenly like, we kind of need parts, and we're not going to get those now. So anyway, something to think about there. Let's see. I know on the last episode I started showing you these paints. This is a Taka, and there's other stuff out there. And I know it has a stiff price tag here. I don't believe it's what I actually paid for it, but I know. It could be kind of hard, you know, on your wallet getting some of these paint sets. But it gives you an idea of different things you can do with these different French colors. And as Tamiya suggests, like a whole red and an olive green for the French one. And here, don't want to repeat myself too much, but that's there. And if you had this set, if you wanted to use this, there are colors there, because the French seem to use an awful lot of different types of paint schemes. So you can see there's the kind of that olivish green and a red brown in there in the mix, plus many other different types of color things. And for those of you who built the Tamiya, or even the Heller R35, I mean, they can be extremely colorful as well. And it seems to be that the H35s, although I'm not sure what Yeah, it's an H-35 with a long-barreled gun. I didn't see too many of those, but anyway, so H-35s tend to be really colorful, as they were cavalry tanks, so they tended to have some fun badges and whatnot. So let's take a look at some of that now. Oops, this is a heavy book. This is a fun one if you're really into the French. This is the Encyclopedia of French Tanks and Armored Vehicles from 1914 to 1940 by Francois Vauvier, if I'm saying that right, the Histoire Collections. This kind of covers just about everything you can imagine. And this one is in English, which is kind of handy. All right, without killing myself lugging this thing, you can see the H-35s had some really colorful schemes, and then you can see a later one there. This one here is got the still has a sloped. All right, so it does match what we just saw on that paint thing, the sloped back of the earlier model, but it's got the tail skid and it's got the longer gun, so it's kind of a mix there. And then we get into the 39s. Well, we got the Renault. We'll take a brief look at Renault. For those of you doing that model, those are really quite colorful. And then we get into the later here, the later H-39s, and you start seeing more of them with the roundel here, like the Air Force emblem, to the later half of the Battle of France as friendly fire. There was a friendly fire incident which was very devastating, and they tried to correct that by making the national emblem a little more prominent so that wouldn't happen. Anyway, so that gives you some ideas of different ways that these things can be painted. And let's look at a few more sources here. This is the Arms Militaire magazine, a French magazine, which has these great volumes that get into particular battles. And there's several to the series that talk about the Battle of France. And these are all in French. But this is from the Somme to the Seine, this particular chapter. And you can see one of the ones here is similar to the one we're looking at here. This is 64, here's 61. So we're talking about this particular unit, and it shows up here in this book. Yeah, just lost the page. Let me try that again. So here is the tank that is what the Tamiya kit is depicting. And to be honest, it's also the same vehicle that a trumpeter kit that was released earlier of the H-39 was also depicting. So if you ever find that kit, we'll talk about that some other time, but that's also got this as a marking option. And there's a Hotchkiss cannon here, which Heller puts this one out. So something else there. So as you can see, this particular H-39, if I can get closer there, it looked like it was trying to put a last ditch effort of defense. Look like they were trying to do a perimeter. Of course, didn't end well. As you can see, all the French prisoners being marched off there. It looks like they were trying to form a circle. And here we go. There's 64, as well as 61, and a sharp B1 bis. In this depiction, I mean, it's a green, but it almost looks gray in this artwork, which I did hear that there was some of these tanks done in gray, and I believe earlier H-35s, the early H-35s were sent to Narvik, I think were in gray color. So again, lots of different colors were used by the French Army for their vehicles. There's a few more shots here. 64 again. It's a well photographed tank. This is being inspected by Germans. I don't really see here. This one's definitely been damaged in combat. I didn't really notice any particular battle damage on 64. It looks like it might have just been abandoned here at the end of the hostilities of this particular battle. Because you can see there's a couple more at the top of the hill, which I think we'd get more pictures of that to show up. Yeah, because there's a whole circle of them here. Another one there. Yeah, I think I'll finish it with this one here. And here's your top of the hill. You've got. Let's see if I get this. A little awkward. You can see them all trying to hold the defense. And you can rumble down the bottom there. So that's this book here. Got a couple more things to show you here to inspire you. I happen to like this tank, as if you haven't noticed. I think it's fun. And this is one in the German, from the German viewpoint of the battlefield as they captured these. Some of the battle damaged ones, etc. You noticed here that this one, there's a couple of damaged ones. One here had the tail skid blown right off. It's sitting there in the middle of the road there. This one here's got a hastily painted heart unit on there for the different Ace of Spades emblems for the different companies or platoons. This is by Alan Ranger, Camera On, by MP Books. That's what this is. And some more shots here. This book also goes into looking at these in German service, which lots of them were used. Especially in the Balkans. So there's plenty of different ways of doing them. If you want to do an early one here, what I mean by that is these are still in the Panzer Gray color. And you can see the new turret hatches on these that they added, and slogans that are on there. And these are serving in Yugoslavia against the partisans. The Prinz Eugen, if I'm pronouncing it right, unit, which I believe was the 7th SS Panzer Division, or SS Mountain Division. That was down in Yugoslavia. You can certainly do these in whitewash, which is common. As you can see here, if you like that option. So there's a lot of different ways you can do this, is what I'm getting at. And there's one here. A more traditional camouflage with a number on it. So if that suits your fancy for a paint job. Really nice view of it with all the gear. 115. That seems to be also somewhere in the Balkans. It looks like that one's got a radio mast. Yeah. So anyway, lots of different options. There's one more here. That seems to be in gray. 424 on it. So, as you can see, you're not limited to how you want to paint these. One last book here, The Eastern Front. This is a great book. Stephen Zaloga, James Granson. A bit old, but still good. And we have one here again with the 7th SS. This looks like it's an overall dark yellow. You can see it's got the tail skid. It's got all the gear on there. And yeah, single color. Looks like it's got an interesting stencil data here. Not quite sure what that would be, but that's intriguing. But that gives you some ideas of things you can do with it. Granted, I came up with a somewhat fantastical one here with the old Heller kit. Again, this is kind of an experiment with just some airbrushing, but not unlike colors of French tanks of the period. And of course, I showed you this last time, but this is the observation vehicle by Trumpeter, and they make a number of other things that we could look at in some upcoming episodes. Okay, so that's kind of getting at the whole the whole story here of the H39 and different things you can do with this kit if you so desire. I mean, granted, that's pretty nice, and so is that one, but you're not limited to those two choices, really. With a decal box with some spear numbers and crosses, you can do a whole bunch of different things with this kit. So, sky's the limit. All right, we will talk to you soon on the next Model Building Workshop. Take care of yourself and stay cool. It's a hot one out there. All right, see you soon. Bye.